What's cooking, everybody? Dave Altizer here with Kinotika. Today we're talking about 3 new Sigma Art Sony E mount lenses. So we actually shot this video before Christmas. At the time, these lenses were sort of new. They're not new anymore. Also, I was going by Dave Altizer, not Dave Mays. Alright, back to the video. I unfortunately don't have my a7 III anymore, so we only were able to do this review on the a6300. However, I did shoot a wedding using all 3 of these lenses on the Sony a7 III, but since then I have sold the a7 III and we're now shooting on the Nikon Z6, so we had to get a hold of a cheap little a6300 for some of these product shots and reviews. Overall, all 3 of these lenses perform phenomenally. They have a great look to them, and if you're used to art lenses, then you're gonna have a lot of the similar things that you're used to on Canon or Nikon. The only difference is we finally have a native Sony E mount. If you're not familiar, in the past, the only way to get a Sigma Art lens on a Sony body was to buy either the Canon or the Sony mount version and use their little Sigma adapter to Sony E mount. If you look at any reviews of all 3 of these lenses, the 24-1.4, the 35, and the 50-1.4, even for Canon or Nikon, it's gonna be the same because these are the exact same lenses. The only difference is we have this Sony adapter built into the lens itself. So what really matters is autofocus performance and overall sharpness. So let's take a look at it here. I have it pulled up in Final Cut. So we're starting here with the 50mm f1.4 at wide open aperture. I had the camera in the mode where it just tracks the face and autofocuses, and as you can see, it's a little slow to grab focus on Connor. It finally does get there, however, and it does work really well. As you can see here, as Connor walks backwards, the image does get a little soft, and it's not a perfect rack as he walks backwards. He walks forward again. I'm just gonna fast forward. And again, the autofocus is just a little bit too slow. He walks out of frame here, and you can see that it does autofocus to the background. It's not the smoothest autofocus. Locks onto his face again, and boom, we're in. So at 1.4 on the 50, you're gonna have a slow autofocus performance. It's not the best in the whole wide world. Let's go to f4 on the 50mm, and hopefully that will solve some of the speed issues. Not really, it's still a little bit too slow. As you can see, I was knocking the tripod accidentally, so the footage is not perfectly smooth here, but as Connor's walking towards me, it looks like it's not locking on his face yet, and now it has. That was much faster than wide open. As you can see, he's already in focus. He's gonna walk out of the frame. Boom, it's much faster to focus on the background and much faster to focus on the foreground. So the solution to shooting on the 50mm, if you want good autofocus for video, is to stop down your aperture to f4. You're gonna have a better time with your focus. Honestly, if you're wide open at 50mm anyways on a Ronin or something, then good luck. So let's move on to the 35mm f1.4. Again, you can see just how beautiful this lens looks. I mean, it's really separating the background with Connor, and it's a nice, fairly wide lens at 35mm. As you can see, it focused on the background perfectly fine here. Connor's walking towards me now, and it kind of went in and out, jittered a little bit, but it's totally locked on his face, and boom, he's totally in focus. I'll pause it just to make sure. This was shooting in 4K. Let me switch to better quality. Walks out of the frame, and boom, it locks onto the background, walks into the frame, and boom, he's in. So 35mm f1.4 worked great. In fact, this is the smallest lens of the 3. It's funny because the 24mm, even though it's wider, is a little bit heavier and bigger than the 35. The 35 is the smallest, most compact lens of these 3. So now let's switch to the 35mm in f4. So he's in focus, gonna walk back. Again, looks really similar, kind of not perfect. He actually looks a little out of focus right now, which is a little strange. So he's totally out of focus. It looks like the lens focused on infinity in the background, so it's not perfect, but eventually the camera does find his face. Still nothing, totally out of focus. Looks like the camera at this point has found his face and has locked onto his face. f4 35mm is good to go for video. And then lastly is 24mm f1.4. We kept the camera locked in the same position for all these images, so that way you can kind of see the difference in focal lengths. But yeah, so let's have the 24mm here. Connor's walking backwards, Looks like everything is looking fine. Staying locked on Connor. As he walks towards the camera, you can see the background going out and him staying in. 24mm, I think, is the best performer of all three, which is great because this is obviously a great lens for gimbal work, especially if you're on an A7 III. You can shoot in full frame at 24mm and then crop in with the APS-C mode for like a 35mm equivalent. So now at f4 on the 24mm, I expect this to perform really well because even wide open performs well. As you can see, it totally tracks on Connor as he walks back. And now he's just gonna walk towards me at f4 on 24mm. Everything looks decent, not perfectly sharp yet. Still a little soft actually as he arrived up here at the front. Looks like it actually never focused perfectly on Connor at f4. He walks out of frame and the camera doesn't really do anything. Let's try that again. So he walks out of frame and boom, autofocus on the background here. And then he jumps into frame and he's out of focus, and kind of in focus. Not the sharpest looking image in the whole wide world. Really interesting. At f1.4, it performed really well. At f4, it's not looking perfectly sharp, but that might just be because of the lens in general. Overall, all three of these lenses perform pretty decently for video autofocus on the Sony cameras. Now let's move on to stills. Got everything pulled up in Lightroom. This is 24mm f1.4. Again, this is all on a tripod, totally locked off. We didn't change anything about Connor's positioning or the camera's positioning. I just changed the lenses and their apertures. So as you can see at f1.4, everything is looking very sharp, really nice, just beautiful bokeh, wonderful lens, 24mm f1.4. I then stopped down to f2.8. As you can see, Connor actually blinked a little bit. Unfortunately, he was trying to avoid that when we were taking pictures, and it looks like I missed one. Sorry, Connor. But as you can see, the image is looking nice and sharp. I'm not really seeing any vignetting going on either. Overall, image is looking good. And then lastly, at f5.6, everything again is looking nice and sharp. The bokeh looks good. 24mm for stills, very nice.
Very nice, very nice.
Moving on to the 35mm f1.4 wide open, right in the center of the image. Looks nice and sharp. A little bit of chromatic aberration going on around it, but that's to be expected. Nothing substantially bad at all. Really milky bokeh in the background. f2.8, everything of course gets a little bit sharper than previously. Less chromatic aberration, so 2.8 on the 35 is going to be your best bet if you want kind of the best image with decent bokeh. And then f5.6, again, everything is looking nice and sharp. And of course at 5.6, everything is sharp, zero chromatic aberration. f5.6 or f8, again, on any lens is supposed to be kind of the optimal settings. 50mm f1.4, man, this lens is so milky and silky and good. Right into the center of the image, everything looks tack sharp. Moving on to f2.8, and goodness gracious, look at the hairs on his beard, super sharp, ridiculous goodness. f5.6, of course, this will be even sharper and even more in focus. Zero image issues that I'm seeing here. Of course, I'm no expert, but pretty much all three of these lenses, wide open all the way down to f5.6, are great performers. So again, nothing technical here, no like actual official charts or anything. I just think overall, for anybody who's in the market for prime lenses on the Sony bodies, definitely consider the Sigma Art E-mount lenses. Again, if you're interested in buying these, consider buying them with our links below. Yeah, I really highly recommend them. They focus really well for video. They look super sharp. The only caveat, if you want to say, with them is the fact that they are a little bit big, but they're surprisingly not that heavy. It's weird. They look big and heavy, and they definitely are heavy, but they balance well. Definitely pick one up and rent one if you're interested. And again, Sigma, thank you for sending us these lenses. We loved using them and they look amazing. What do you guys think of these lenses? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to us. Once again, I'm Dave Altizer. These are a lot cheaper than Sony lenses. See you next time. If you're still watching this video, then that means you're a true fan, and if that's the case, I just want to let you know that we're so grateful to have you here on Kinetica. This video was not the most exciting, incredible video in the whole wide world, and I know that we will be doing some real awesome reviews. That's why we haven't been posting. We've just been working a lot right now, so bear with us. We will be posting some really fun Kinotika style Dave Mays, Connor goodness, awesomeness coming soon. So yeah, thanks again for watching till the end, and